good day. My name is Jamie Morris. I'm Terryn's cousin, and the family's asked me to kind of lead this celebration of his life. So I am no professional at this by no means. So please be patient with me. If you hear me rambling a lot, it's because I'm nervous as a bed bug up here, because this is not my cup of tea, and this is kind of like me and Joe, my father-in-law, were talking about, when Justice and Brendon Terry asked me this, normal Jamie would be like, all right, give me a couple of days and I'll let you know something. And it was in a matter of seconds, I told him that I would be honored to, and I believe today that was Terryn, because, like I said, this is this is a whole new realm for me. I'm a middle school teacher, so I'm used to talking to a bunch of seventh graders, so just bear with me on that. Kind of what we're going to do is I'm going to have a few little comments. We'll do the moment of silence, and you can do with that what you will. And then we're going to call on Justice and some of her friends. They've got a song prepared, and she's going to do her reflections. And then kind of after that, Henry's going to come up, and then after that, we'll kind of open the floor to everybody if you want to come up and say a few things about Terryn. Just, if you wouldn't mind, keep in mind maybe a couple minutes on it, just so everybody can get their chance to, say their story or their thing about Terryn. And then there's also a mic up here, and the reason for that is they're videotaping this, and I'm sure the family would love for you guys if you do come up to talk in the mic so they can have that memory. So, like I said, I've known Terryn ever since he was probably 8 or 9 years old. Me and my wife started dating, and always a humble person, and that kind of led to him being a humble son, and then eventually finding Justice and being a humble husband, and then, being a humble father to Theo. So, I mean, his life is nothing but humble and kindness and looking better for everybody. And the one kind of, when I was racking my brain on the reflection for him, the thing that kind of popped up in my head with Terryn was he was probably 9 or 10 years old, and like I said, me and my wife were dating, and Brendon and Terry would drop him off at his aunt and uncle's house while they worked. And it never failed. He would have him a bag with him, and he'd have some boiled peanuts in a can. And during that time, I don't know if you ever saw the commercials, but that chunky soup, the sirloin burger, you see the NFL players, they're sitting there, mom fixes this or whatever. And we're not talking about a little kid size. We're talking about a 2-pound can, and he'd come bebopping in there. And every day at lunch, he was trained. He knew how to use that microwave, because I'd be like, do you need me to help you, buddy? He'd say, nope. And he'd always call me Mr. Jamie. It took me forever to get him to just call me Jamie, because that's just the way he was. Somebody was older than him, he was going to respect him and show him that. So, but he'd whip that thing up, and he'd eat that whole thing. But it never failed. And it never failed, and it comes back to humble and how he was. He would always ask me if I wanted some. He'd say, do you want some? And I'd be like, no, that's all right, you eat that. Because I want to see what happens in a couple of days when everything comes out, if you're still alive or whatever. But that was just the type of person that Terryn was. And, he had loves in his life. Of course, he had Justice, he has mom and dad. But band and music was his love too, because I remember too when he was thinking about going in the band, and Brendon and them were like, we don't know, and finally they let him do it, and it just blossomed. He kicked off from 6th grade up until the day that he got called. Music everything. So he was very passionate about his people and about his music. I've got 2 quotes. I'm a big quote guy. I coach sports and stuff like that, so I've got quotes. I'm a history teacher, so I got one of those. But the 2 quotes, when I told Justice and them that I would do this, I went home and kind of searched out trying to find some quotes that, I felt like would be for Terryn. And one was based off of his love of music. Okay, and this one comes from a song by Irving Berlin, and the quote is, "The song has ended, but the melody lingers on." Even though he's not here, his song lingers on with all of us, the way we loved him, the way we remember him, and do it every day. And then the second one, like I said, I'm a history teacher, so I had to dig deep to find this one. This one comes from, I'm going to probably mess his name up, but Thucydides, who was a historian in the Greek wars back a long time ago. But what he said, and this kind of ties in with it too, what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the life of others. And that just means whatever, we can live our life and try to get all these great accomplishments and have these statues or all these famous people. But at the end of the day, it's how you touch people's lives. And like I said, Terryn, he was one of those people that touched everybody that was around him. I feel like everybody that knew Terryn was better after meeting him. Even though when he was coming up, he was driving me nuts sometimes, but wanted to leave him at Summer Waves one time, but he touched me. I feel like, being with Terryn for all those years helped me with my kids, so he touched me in that way. But at this time, if you wouldn't mind standing up, we're going to have like a moment of silence. Like I said, if however you wish to remember Terryn, you may do that. But we'll take just a minute or two and kind of have that. All right, thank you. You may be seated. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Justice and her friends, if they would not mind coming up. They're going to do a rendition of Tennessee Whiskey.
Wow, there's a lot of people here. So if you weren't able to make it to our wedding, Tennessee Whiskey was our first dance song, and my best friend and his best friend played it for us. And I felt like it was only right for me to play it and sing it for him. We used to stand in our kitchen, and it would be coming on over our little speaker, and we would just dance, and he hated dancing. He hated it, but he would do it for me because he was just a really wonderful person. And so I've got some really awesome people who wanted to help me with that, and so that's what we're going to do. Okay. Yep. Used to spend my nights at the barroom. Liquor was the only love I'd known. But you rescued me from reaching for the bottom and brought me back from being too far gone. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. Honey, I'll stay stoned on your love all the time. I've looked for love in all the same old places. Found the bottom of the bottle's always dry. But when you poured out your heart, I didn't waste it. 'Cause there's nothing like your love to get me high. Oh, you're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. And honey, I'll stay strong on your love all the time. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. And honey, I'll stay strong on your love all the time. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. And honey, I'll stay strong on your love all the time. Thank you guys. So Terryn and I met 5 years ago, and the best part I think I would always give him so much crap about was I saw Terryn when I was working at Rancheros, and I thought he was the cutest thing in the whole world, and he was not interested in me at all. And my best friend talked me into messaging him, and so I did, and he was like, I'm not looking for a relationship. And I was like, okay. And not 2 months later, we had a mutual friend that actually ended up setting us up, and we had no intentions of being together. And we just fell in love, and it just never ended, and he had so much love to give. And no matter what I threw at him, he always was there, and he was always so strong, and one of the most patient people you'd ever meet. He worked so hard to make sure that everybody else was happy, and that's all he ever wanted was for everybody else to be happy. He would put everyone else before himself. And it's so hard to try to find all the right words to say about him because there's so many words. I love that man, and I still love that man, and I wish that there was more time. But I know that he's not hurting anymore, and he wouldn't want us to be sad. He'd honestly probably be looking at us going, y'all need to stop crying. and he's with Theo, and he's taking care of our boy, and that's what's important. And thank you guys so much for being here to celebrate him. Yeah. Thanks.
At this time, if Henry would come up.
Wow, okay. Not sure I'm supposed to follow that, Justice, but your singing's beautiful and your love for him was beautiful. I'm trying to pull this up because there's no way I can remember it. While I'm doing that, though, Terryn used to call me all the time when we were getting the band together and everything. The first thing he'd say when I would answer the phone is, "Hey, buddy, do you have a second?" And it would never be a second. It'd be a 45-minute to an hour conversation of him just running something by me. And I can't work my phone right now, and I'm so sorry about that. All right, here we go. So, like I said, Justice, this was an honor for you to ask me to speak for him. I wanted to find something that could speak to what a wonderful person Terryn was. And I looked for something beautiful and eloquent, like the love that you guys had. I don't know if you know, but I had the distinct pleasure of officiating Terryn and Justice's wedding. And I'll never forget watching Terryn's hand shake while he was reading his vows to you. I mean, the love in his eyes and his heart was just, it was so much that his body couldn't take it, you know? He was shaking hard. And I asked during that ceremony that you two never stop laughing together and to be a beacon of hope for everybody looking for the kind of love that you guys had. And you embodied that request. You guys did that every day. Your love for one another was written on your faces every time I saw you two together. The way you two looked at each other. And that's what everybody wants. I wanted to find some words that were poignant and unique, like the love that Terryn had for his friends, his family, and the people around him. I spoke with Miss Brenda yesterday, and I told her that Terryn was one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. And I know it's cliche to say, but I genuinely believe that Terryn would give you the shirt off of his back because you needed that shirt, and Terryn liked to walk around shirtless. Miss Brenda told me a story that when Terryn was a kid, he would ask for extra money on the days when they were selling ice cream at school so that he could make sure that the kids that didn't have the money to buy some ice cream could get some ice cream. And she said whenever he'd get gifts, he'd keep the boxes so that he could box some of those toys back up and give them to somebody that might need them more than him. And that's beautiful. That's Terryn. I mean, that story is Terryn. Another friend of mine told me a story of, a time when he was struggling, and Terryn would take him out and buy him groceries and feed him because he didn't have the means to do it at the time. And Terryn wasn't going to watch somebody be hungry. He wasn't going to watch somebody want if he had. And he'd smile and laugh the whole time for everything. And I keep telling Justice, I keep hearing Terryn's laugh right now. I keep hearing it. I wanted to find some words that were passionate and exact, like Terryn's passion for every hobby that piqued his interest. Computers, music. He threw himself wholeheartedly into every job he had, whatever his work was. He went at it with a fervor, He loved to learn something new, and then he learned to love everything he possibly could about that new thing that he learned. And I was fortunate enough to witness Terryn's passion firsthand. We made music together, and sitting there watching him compose music on Guitar Pro for our band and just pull these songs that were brilliant out of his head, out of nowhere. It was fascinating. It really was, to sit there and watch him, and like Brendon would say, he'd tweak his beard a little bit and tap out something, bang out a beat on his leg, and it would come out just amazing because he had so much talent, so much passion for it. And I think everyone who heard the music that he wrote, that we made, could feel that passion and that talent that Terryn had. He took his music, like every one of his hobbies, very, very seriously. And I think he was our drive for us getting better and doing what we did. He wanted us to perfect what we were doing. Because if we were going to put it out into the world, it had to be up to Terryn's standards. Because that was his passion. So I looked. You're talking about quotes, man. I looked for some sort of poem, some quote, anecdote. I've got a degree in literature. I looked through everything I could find to put all these ideas and qualities that Terryn had into perspective. To let the words of somebody better at writing than myself move us to celebrate Terryn's life. And I realized while I was looking through all that they weren't needed. Terryn's life spoke for itself with words more beautiful than I could ever write, than anyone could ever write. Terryn's life is written on every single story I've heard over the past few days. On every laugh that we've shared over something that he said or did. On every sad tear that we're shedding here today. Beautiful words aren't necessary here. Our memories and stories of Terryn will keep him with us. We will miss him, but in missing him, we get the chance to say, hey, you remember that time that Terryn did this? And nothing could possibly be more beautiful, elegant, poignant, unique, passionate, or exact than that. Miss you, buddy. Thank you.
You know, it's kind of funny. I'm going to piggyback on Henry there for a minute because we were sitting there waiting for, everything to start. And my son was picking a lint off my jacket or whatever, And we were kind of talking. I said, listen, if it was up to Terryn, I said, he'd be fine if I had a T-shirt, some cargo shorts, and flip-flops on. I said, I don't think he's going to worry with a couple of lint on this jacket that, I don't ever wear. So, that made me think of that, that we had, because that's just, and I was telling that story too, like, Terryn wears shorts year-round. It didn't matter if it was 10 degrees. He'd look at you and you're over there with, a jacket on and you look like an Eskimo, and he's like, are you cold? I mean, yeah. And he'd say, well, it's a little cool outside, but it'll be all right. I mean, that was Terryn, So from now, if you would like to come and say some words, the mic is open. You can either come up here and say it, or if you don't feel comfortable coming up in front of the podium, there, like I said, there's a microphone right there, and that's just so the family can have it on videotape so they can cherish these memories. Just be patient. If somebody gets up, just wait your turn. Like I said, everybody's going to get a chance to speak. And if you wouldn't mind, just keep it to a couple of minutes just so everybody could get to show their love for Terryn. So I'm opening it up to the floor if anybody would like to come. Like I said, you can either come here or you can come there and express your story or anything you'd like to about Terryn.
Hello, my name's Sebastian, Justice's brother. Only thing I really want to say is I love how he always loved my sister, always took care of her. Even when she was depressed, even when she was going through her issues, he always loved, despite anything. I just want him to remember that I love him as well as my sister does, no matter what. I'm sure all you guys know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Kenny.
I was one of Terryn's friends through various means. We worked together briefly for a little while. And I have been thinking about this a lot over the last few days, starting with the news of his health deteriorating. And it's hard to find silver linings in this sort of thing. But I eventually thought to myself that death is inevitable, of course. But I think in times like this, it's nice to think that death is almost a good thing. Because without it, the time that we have would not be nearly as significant as it is. And I'd like to think that for myself and everybody that had the absolute pleasure of meeting Terryn, the time that we have and the time that we had with him is better, and better spent because of him being in it. And I will have a very hard time forgetting Terryn. He was the most wonderful man I ever met, and a better man than I can ever aspire to be. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come and say a few words for Terryn?
I've never spoken at these things before. And I'm going to do my best to keep it to a minute or two. But I feel like for Terryn, I should. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Catherine, and I'm his cousin. His dad and my mom are brother and sister. So we grew up together, and our granny, our parents' mom, she used to joke with us about how we tied up December before and after Christmas because he's December 1st of 91, and I was December 31st of 92. So we grew up together. We were cousins, but we were more like brother and sister. And me and my mom and my dad, we didn't live up here. We lived in Kingsland, St. Mary's, Georgia, for those of you that might know where that's at. And if you don't, it's about an hour away. And we'd come up on weekends a lot after our papa had died, is what Mom said. And so that's basically how we started growing up together in a sense. And the reason I say we were more like brother and sister, you know how brothers and sisters, you fight and you bicker, but you still love each other. And we'd fuss and ask to be able to get together. When was Catherine coming back up? Mom, when are we going back? And then as soon as we got together, you know what we did? We fussed, we fought, we bickered. We'd argue about who was going to climb the tree first in Granny's front yard. That years later, Uncle Terry, they cut it down. Just saying. I think we might have been either teenagers or preteens when that tree went away, but when it did, I'll never forget when I came up and I said, "Where's the tree?" He said, "Oh, it's gone." I said, "Well, I guess we got to go find another one to climb." He's like, "Well, no, Daddy will cut that one down too." So, you know, that was Terryn for you. But I have so many memories, and so many to the point that I'd be up here for days telling you guys. I mean, we did everything together. We jumped on the trampoline, we rode the four-wheeler, we'd probably drive it further than what we really were supposed to, but we never told you guys that. Sorry, Terryn. But, and a lot of times we knew about how long we had. And we'd make sure we timed it just right. And there's a lot of things we had it down to the minute and sometimes right down to the split second. But those are memories that I'll never, ever regret. He was we used to joke, he was the good one out of us. And, well, as our family knows, I was the wild one when we were younger. And he'd always tell me, Catherine, you need to be careful. Catherine, don't do anything stupid. Don't want to lose you. And I'd joke, I'd be like, yeah, I know, Terryn. You either. But I knew he wasn't going to do anything. He was a good kid. He didn't do anything where you really had to worry about him. And he focused on what kids should focus on. He wanted to be successful. We used to talk about that back in high school. And I think he left this world being successful. He wanted his parents to be proud of him. And I know they are. He wanted to get married, and he wanted to have a family. And I'm so thankful that he had you, Justice. And I know Theo's not with us, but I'm thankful that he got to experience knowing he was going to be a dad. And I know Theo didn't come out to you guys the way that you wanted or we expected, but he got to hold his baby in real life. And for that, I'm so thankful for. I feel like he got to experience things that we all usually get to experience. I remember when the video of him proposing to you went on Facebook, and I was like, that's my boy. He did it the right way. I knew it. I knew he would. But he was, like everyone else has said, there's no words to explain or describe Terryn. There's so many. And he did always, for sure, put everyone before him. And even after he was sick, he wanted you guys to be okay no matter what. And then we grew up, and he went to college. I got married, had a little boy, and I'll never forget the first time that he saw Landon when he came over to Granny's house. And he held him, and he just looked at him. And I don't think I'm ever going to forget that. He was proud of me. And it might sound silly, but I always wanted him to be proud of me. I never wanted him to be disappointed in me. And some of you guys have probably seen it on Facebook in one of my posts, but it didn't matter what I did, if I messed up or if I did something stupid or if I just felt like I was being unsuccessful in something. He didn't judge you for anything. He'd pat me on my back and be like, oh, Catherine, he'd put his arm around his fingers, his long fingers. They'd rest right here, and sometimes he'd just do them like this, and he'd say, it's okay. He said, I still love you. Don't do it again. I still love you. He knew how to pick people up, and he didn't even really have to try. That's the beauty of it. That's just Terryn. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm heartbroken. I'm human. I shouldn't be sad that he's not with us, but we're all human. And it's not gonna make things any easier. And I think we all know that. But I'm thankful he's not in pain, and I'm thankful that in his mind and my mind, he left, when he left this world, he left it in success. I feel like he achieved the things that he wanted to achieve. Granted, and we've had all sorts of different talks over the years, we thought we would be much older before anything like this ever happened. And I don't think either one of us ever thought it would be like this. We lost our granny a year and a half ago. And after everyone had walked out of the room, it was just me, Justice, and Terryn sitting there. And I'm gonna tell you something. I've never seen a woman stand by her husband the way that I've seen her do. And I'm thankful for that. But we just sat there. We couldn't leave her. And I think for me, because he felt so strong, just like I felt so strong about, we didn't want to leave our granny laying, is why I feel like I don't want to leave him. And I know there's others that are struggling with that feeling right now. But don't think of it as you're leaving him. You're letting him rest. He was tired. He was really tired. But thank you to everyone that has come and been there for Justice and her family and our side of the family as well. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come and say a couple of words?
I'm Darren. I'm the friend that Henry was talking about whenever he was talking about Terryn making sure that I ate because he wasn't going to watch me do without. Almost 6 years to the day, 1 week removed from it, I met Terryn, and we all ended up moving into a house together. And before I met these two strapping young gentlemen, I was in a tight spot and I didn't have any means to take care of myself. And Terryn came in from work one night, he looked me in the eyes and he's like, "Hey buddy, you hungry?" I said, "No man, I'm good." He's like, "When's the last time you ate?" I said, "Yesterday." "So you're hungry?" "No, I'm good, buddy." He looked at me and goes, "Well, I'm gonna go get something to eat. You can get in the car and go with me if you want to, or you can stay here and be hungry. I recommend getting in the car." So he turned around and he walked away. And I remember getting up, getting some clothes on, and going and meeting him in the car. And we went and we ate at New Hong Kong Buffet. And we're sitting there eating. And Terryn looks at me and he takes a big long sip of his Pepsi that he was out of, you know. And he says, "Whenever we get done, we're going to go to Walmart. We're going to get you some groceries." And I told him, "You don't have to do that, man." He said, "No, I don't have to, but I'm going to. Because you're not going to starve on my time." And then he introduced me to probably the best family and friends I could ever ask for. And I just wanted to thank Terryn for everything he ever did for me. And for all of y'all.
Anybody else like to come say something?
My name is Tyler. I grew up with Terryn. Every day after school, we used to hang out with each other, almost every day. I've been in a lot of arguments in my life, but I think 75% of them was with that guy. And the sad thing is 98% of the times he was right. Terryn introduced me to a lot of things. He was one of the most genuine people I've ever met. He was in a band with me and a couple other guys sitting on that third row too. And Terryn played bass, but before that, all Terryn ever played was guitar, and I gave him my uncle's bass. And but after that, he was just like a master at it, like 10 minutes later. somehow, and I'm still learning. But one thing I'll never forget is my mother passed away 3 days after Terryn's birthday, and Terryn was always there for me. And about a year after my mother passed away, I was going through some really hard times. So I don't even know exactly what happened. I just know Terryn showed up where I was and told me to get in his car. And I looked at him and was like, no. And he didn't give me a choice. I got in his car. And he took me back to my dad's house, and then I honestly think that was the best thing that's ever happened to me, because Terryn saved my life on a lot of different occasions. Terryn was one of the most genuine people I've ever met. I truthfully don't think I'll ever be anyone as genuine as Terryn. I used to give him piggyback rides. And I've grown a lot since then. He's always been the same size. So I don't know how that was ever possible. I have so many awesome memories. And I think, out of all the memories I have, the majority of my favorite ones are with him. And I'm definitely going to miss him.
Would anybody else like to come up and reflect on Terryn?
Hi. A lot of you don't know me, but I used to play music with Terryn, Brendon, and Henry. I first met Terryn on March 22nd of 2014. It was the first time my band ever played a show in Waycross. It was the nicest thing that other band members had done, because no one was giving us a chance. But somehow we got on playing at the Veterans Memorial. Yeah. And that was probably the best show I ever played in my entire life. And the last show that we played together was in my hometown. And I think that was the last time that I saw them. The day that I found out about Terryn's condition was also the same day that he passed later that night. So it really, really cut me pretty deep, because I hadn't talked to them in so long. It just kind of makes you realize what you have before it's gone. He was a really great person. I don't know if you guys ever saw this. I don't know if he did it to just me, but whenever I was around him, he would do like this really dumb little face at me. He would go like, and every time it would just catch me off guard, even though I knew he was about to do it. But it was always nice to know that he had that childlike spirit, because he always made everybody smile no matter who he was around. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come up? Do you mind if I steal your story? This is the famous story of Terryn and his Uncle Joe with the peanuts. they were, when Terryn was coming up, he thought it was hot stuff to go with Uncle Joe on the jobs. They'd go all over the place. And I've heard this story about 3,000 times. So, like I said, you don't mind me sharing this with them, do you? So they're driving along, and, Papa picked up, or Uncle Joe picked up some green boiled peanuts in a can, because that was Terryn's thing. And they were driving along, and, Terryn was throwing the hulls out the window. And his Uncle Joe looked at him and said, "You're going to keep doing that, and we're going to get law caught." So, Terryn's still bebopping around. Recklessly, Uncle Joe looks up. There's blue lights behind him. And so, of course, he's frightened because he thinks it's because he's throwing the peanut hulls out, which, of course, he's not. But, he's told us that so many times. And, the look on Terryn's face when he's around, it was just like, everything like that. He thought he was going to jail for throwing peanut hulls out. So, but that's just, that was that relationship they had, and that was just Terryn. He took you at your word, and he knew, you could get him like that. But, and it's like I told my oldest son the other day when we found everything out, and this is what I would tell to everybody. Live your life to the fullest, because you don't know how long you have. Don't live in regret, don't live in fear. Live your life. Love hard, play hard, whatever. Just remember, like was said before, we only have a certain time here. So make sure that you live it to your fullest. With saying that, would anybody else like to say anything on behalf of Terryn? I think at this time we're going to play the video for Terryn that was playing last night. Unless anybody else has anything to say real quick before we transition to that. And as you can tell from one of those pictures, he was very responsible at a young age because he had to babysit his older cousin who was asleep on the couch. But, kind of in closing, Terryn was a super smart kid, adult. I know when knowing him from a young age, if you didn't know what you were talking about, he would definitely call you out on that. So every time I would go over and he'd be around, I'd only talk about things that I was 1,000% sure I knew about. Or I could get close to a computer and Google to make sure I was right. But, and that was Terryn. Terryn was a bright torch that burned bright for everyone to see his views and his view of the world and how he's seen other people, which was a great thing. Because he didn't worry about your faults. He worried about what was the good in you. And he saw that in everyone. Whether you knew it or not at the time, you come to recognize that. At this time, we're going to play a song, Go Rest High on That Mountain. I think it's going to play one or two times, and then at that, I think they'll call the pallbearers up. If anybody wants to, real quick, before we close it out, if anybody wants to now say anything, and then if not, they'll go ahead and play the song.
I know your life on earth was troubled, and only you could know the pain. You weren't afraid to face the devil. You were no stranger gathered round your grave to grieve. Wish I could see